Hi, my name is Sue Ann Sycama, and I'm going to talk about Acalia and rhodiola today. I'm a student in the January 13 nutrition cohort, and I came to MUIH from Alaska. And in Alaska, I had a gardening business in which I grew about 3,000 perennial plants a year and also did garden design and maintenance. So I'm a big fan of plants and have spent quite a bit of time with them. I'm sorry that I couldn't figure out how to have a video and a PowerPoint on a split screen, so I just put a photo of myself so you could see what I look like. The first plant that I'm going to talk about is yarrow, which grows prolifically in Alaska, especially in south central Alaska. Janice Schofield, who is a native plant person, tells a story about how it got its name. So Achilles' mother dipped him in a vat of yarrow tea to make him invincible. And when she held him by his foot, and so his foot wasn't submerged. And that's where the term Achilles' heel comes from. Yarrow likes to grow in the full sun, and it also likes to grow in meadows and disturbed sandy soil. You often see it on the side of roads or in large meadows in Alaska. And it's an incredibly tough plant, meaning it can grow in drought conditions, it can grow in really windy conditions, and it has these green mats which stay low to the ground with feathery foliage, and the bloom stalk comes up off that feathery foliage. And these mats have interconnected roots that can really spread quite aggressively. So not only is it a tough plant, but it's an aggressive spreader. So some of the ways that I've medicinally used yarrow is for wound healing. So it's used on cuts to stop the bleeding. So if I'm working outside or on a hike and I happen to cut myself, I harvest a bit of the leaf and I smash it up in my fingers and I put it on that wound. And the blood begins to clot almost immediately. You can almost watch it clot. And after a little bit, the wound has stopped bleeding. It's quite remarkable. Another way I've used it is for colds and fevers. So I often harvest in the summer and then I dry it. And then in the winter, when I'm feeling like I'm just about to get a cold, I make a hot tea. And I actually never mixed the yarrow with anything else. I just infused it directly, and it's very, very bitter. So it's nice to know that a popular preparation is mixed with elderflower and peppermint that probably complement that bitterness quite well. But it's really also almost miraculous if you catch your cold at the right time. If you drink the tea right before or just at the onset of your cold, it is amazing how the yarrow just knocks the cold right out. So here's a recipe from an indigenous person from Kodiak Island, which is in south central Alaska. And the recommendation here is to steep yarrow, add honey and hot pepper, and drink kind of shots of that 3 times a day. And I've never tried it, but I thought it would be a fun one to try. I think it's not for the mild of heart. And then this also is by Janice Schofield, who I talked about earlier, the yarrow facial steam, and I have done this quite a bit. So normally what I do is I just harvest the leaves and flowers in the summer and I put it in boiling water, and then I put my face with a towel over my head and just let that steam come up and open my pores, and it just feels fantastic. So you sit under that steam for a while and then you come out and you splash yourself with cold water and your skin just feels so clean and tight. It's really a wonderful thing to do. I would highly recommend it. The second plant I'm going to talk about is Rhodiola rosea, which also is a prolific grower in Alaska. It grows in the colder climates of the world a lot in the Arctic. And Russia was at the forefront of research with this plant, and it's popularly used medicinally in Eastern Europe and Asia still. And it has a yellow flower, which grows shoots from the same root. So once this plant gets established, it can become quite an aggressive little grower in itself. And it likes full sun the best, but will grow in partial shade as well. A story about this plant is that it was used by the Vikings to boost endurance and counter fatigue. So some medicinal uses of rhodiola is, as we've talked about in class, it's an adaptogen. So these adaptogenic properties help our bodies handle stressful situations in a resourceful manner, which is really important in this day and age because we have so much toxicity in our environment and also stress levels that we carry from our work or emotional stress. So adaptogens play a pretty important role in today's society in helping people cope. Rhodiola also helps to balance neurotransmitters in the central nervous system, which can help with depression. And actually, the Russians are using it a lot in this way to help with depression. And it also enhances memorization and concentration abilities over time, which makes me want to use it to see if it will help me in my studies, because I can certainly use enhanced memorization and concentration. So traditional uses of rhodiola, Alaska Native people used the flowers for tea and for stomach and intestinal problems, and the raw flowers were used for tuberculosis. And that information is coming out of a 1959 book, which I thought was kind of interesting. And also, I found data from 1993 that Alaska Native people ate rhodiola roots for food. Apparently, they warmed them, kind of like roasting them. And then they also made the leaves and roots into a kind of sauerkraut, which is just more evidence of traditional uses of fermented foods. If I think about sauerkraut rhodiola, I can't think of almost a more powerful superfood. I'd love to try it. So what's happening currently in Alaska is that they're beginning to commercially produce rhodiola because all of the sources up until now are wild harvested, and it's getting more and more difficult to supply it because it's becoming more and more popular. So I posted a web address here, and you can cut and paste this link into your browser window, and it will bring up a website that talks about rhodiola production in the state of Alaska. There's a video that was taken of a farmer in the Matanuska Valley in Alaska named Mark Rempel, who I believe last fall harvested the very first crop, commercial crop in Alaska. So it's 5 years from seed to harvest. And I think it's actually pretty exciting, the potential for the state. So take a look at that and see what you think. So thanks so much for your time. It's nice to have a little bit of contact with my fellow students because online classes, you don't really get much. So it's been nice taking this class with you, and I look forward to watching your presentations. Thank you.